Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, shareholder and consultant here at Boomer Consulting. And with me today is my friend and colleague, Marc Staut. Marc, thank you for being on this episode of the podcast.
Absolutely. Great to be here again.
All right. Marc is our Chief Innovation and Technology Officer. And our topic of discussion today is how to strategically invest in technology. So Marc, we were just chatting right before this episode about how you've lived and breathed this topic for so long, and you've managed really large technology budgets before. So you know better than anyone the questions and conversations around how do we strategically invest resources, time, money into technology. So if you were sitting down with maybe a CIO or a managing partner of a firm, and they were asking you, what's your recommendations, or kind of what are some initial thoughts we should be thinking about when it comes time to invest in technology, what would you say?
First and foremost, you're absolutely using the proper language. It is investing in technology. It is not just spending. When you say spending, we immediately start thinking of cost centers and expenses. And there is a little bit of that. I mean, we obviously need to keep the lights on, but you're not going to differentiate yourself from the competition if you are thinking about technology as an expense. You really have to change your mindset and think about what are the opportunities that technology, whether it be the technology systems or the technology people, some of the emerging technologies like automation and machine learning, what are things that can give to us that we can leverage as a competitive advantage if we think of technology as an investment. So that initial mindset, Jon, is absolutely key in how you approach this.
Yep. And I was actually just doing some reading earlier today, and I came across something you wrote. You don't even know this, but I came across something you wrote, and it was about from disruption to transformation. And it's this whole mindset shift is a big piece of it on how firms are going to invest in all sorts of areas in the future. Is just going to be different as they look to transform, not just to handle a disruption. And so I think you're kind of off to a good start there with your answer, but can you speak just real briefly on that topic
Absolutely.
around disruption to transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it actually, that's a great way of looking at things is tying the entirety of the budget together. I mentioned that there are operational costs, right? That, we have to keep things running, and keeping the lights on is another way of saying that. And the reality is that about 80% of most technology budgets go into that, 80% or more, I should say. A healthy budget is maximum 80% of that budget is going into the run category, where that's where we're maintaining our current business capabilities. That's the operational aspect of things. Now, we want to take the additional 20% and we want to look at it in two different ways. One, obviously, we want to grow our business. So we are going to need new tools, whether that is additional licensing, adding on new packages, increasing the systems that we have already in place in order to get more from them. That would be more of the grow, right? We're gonna look at our business capabilities and say, how do we invest in making those enhanced and ready to go to that next level? Oftentimes that's about 15% of the budget. But what gets really interesting is when we think about that transformational opportunities. What are going to drive those new business capabilities? What is it that is going to give us the ability to enter into a new service line or offer something new to our clients? This is really where the technology innovation comes in and allows us to tie the technology strategy into the business strategy. And that is generally speaking about 5%, or should be 5% of your technology budget. So if you look at it, you've got about 80% in the run, 15% in grow, and about 5% in truly transformational investments that are going to help you get to that next level.
That's really great. And it's really helpful to maybe have some of those kind of percentages to think about how to allocate, because, we've both sat down with many partners, many CIOs, technology leaders, and it can sometimes just be overwhelming. Where do I start? Where should I be focusing my resources? And there's a certain level of care applied to that thought process too, because we know how quickly investment can disappear.
Right.
Kind of depending on who you listen to, and oftentimes the long run it takes to even get something implemented and rolled out. So, as you think about kind of building on your recommendations there, Mark, how you kind of got us started thinking about that, kind of building on that, what kind of coaching or advice would you give firms around whether it has to do with prioritization of where they should, or even thinking about some implementation best practices?
The first thing I think is really important to keep in mind is when you're looking at your tech budget, if you are keeping it the same year after year and thinking you're doing good, you're not. Because that operational aspect, the keeping the lights on, usually goes up in cost by 5 to 6 to 7% year over year. And where does that come from if you have maintained the same budget in a year over year type of thing? Well, it's got to come out of the grow category or out of the transformation category. And now you really are starting to shift your budget into more just maintenance. You're not really going to get those benefits. So the first thing to do is make sure that your budget is continuing to grow with the economy. This is not going overboard here, but really looking at what your licensing costs are going to be for the things that you really need can give you a good estimate of how much your entire budget should grow year over year. So that's the first thing. The next thing I would recommend is, what are areas that your firm is already involved in, that you're already doing things, but that customers would like or would want, if they knew to want, additional services, whether that is in reporting and dashboards, business intelligence. Those are really easy ways to say, we have all of this information, but the way that we present it to our clients may not be really resonating with them. It may not be as enlightening as possible, and it may not be putting us, the firm, in the best light. If we were able to adjust that, if we were able to say, hey, we can help you with these things. And it doesn't have to just be business intelligence, big data reporting type of things. That's just one example. Automation is another area that is really growing because the clients themselves are also struggling to find talent. They're struggling to find time. It takes them longer to close their books on a regular basis than it ever did before. And if the firm can use technology and come in and say, hey, we can help you make this a smoother process, well, that's a real big competitive advantage, because if they think about leaving and looking for another firm and shopping on price, for example, then they're not going to just be comparing a tax return or an audit to an audit. They're going to say, wow, it's going to take us so much time to go back to the way we used to do things as well. So there's a huge stickiness that comes in with getting involved strategically with your client's business and really helping improve that business. And technology is a wonderful on-ramp to have those conversations.
Yeah, I think of two phrases after kind of hearing you talk through that, Mark, and that it's client experience and employee experience, right? If you can invest in technology that can improve the client experience, hey, that's something to look at. If you can look at some technology that can help improve the employee experience, hey, that's possibly a priority as well. And I think
they both are.
Probably see, yeah. I mean, I think you probably see technology really impacting both of those topics. Is that true, or do you see something different there?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. For a long time, actually, a lot of people were focused on really the internal experience, the internal client experience, or the user experience. And they really didn't spend as much time as they should have talking about the client experience. And that is coming straight to the forefront right now. Part of that is because of the times we are in. Portals are so much more important, and digital document transfers and keeping up with checklists and communications and how do we collaborate with our clients is now at the forefront of everybody's concerns, everybody's interests. So that has raced to the top in a lot of ways, and we didn't put as much into that as we probably should have. So when we think about some of these new technologies, just like if you adopt an internal technology and you're going to train on that, You also have to think about, I'm adopting something for our clients. We're going to need to train them. We're going to need to make sure that they're educated and informed about this as well.
So, Mark, as you work with firms in this area, I think it's safe to say you work with firms that are maybe winning in this area, and you probably work with some firms that have a lot of opportunity ahead of them, let's just say.
Sure.
So as you think about the firms that are kind of winning in this area, what are some of the positive results you see that they're having?
I think the really cool thing to watch is when firms have invested in technology for themselves, and they look at that as that investment, that opportunity. And then they start to have those light bulb moments that go, our clients really need this too. And there are a number of firms that we work with that have started with internal projects and have now taken them to their clients, and their clients love them. They're going crazy for this, saying, this is something we just can't get everywhere else. And we've been looking for somebody to help us with this. So many firms want to be more than just your accountant. They want to be an advisor. They want to be a business coach. They want to be a strategic mentor to their clients and have that type of relationship. And technology is an amazing on-ramp for doing that.
So, I think you're covering a lot here, and it's great.
It's a big topic.
It's great. Yeah, I can just kind of, imagine someone making their commute to work, listening to this and thinking, we really need to start moving. We really need to start investing more strategically in technology. Maybe they've sat around, so to speak, and talked about it for a while and think, okay, we have to start making some decisions now. As we kind of round out our conversation here, Mark, for this episode, what are some of your recommendations on next steps? If they did one or two things after listening, to this podcast, what would you recommend to them?
Absolutely. The place to start is make sure that you have a technology strategic plan. Just like you need a strategic plan for your firm overall, you want a technology strategic plan that is going to look 3, 4, 5 years out, as far out as you can manage. 3 is even a little bit challenging these days, just because of the uncertainty in these times. But what are you going to accomplish? Where are you going to aim for? But don't just think about it as something for your firm and the internal people. Think also, what are our clients going to be looking for? That strategic plan, that technology strategic plan, needs to encapsulate what your firm is going to have internally, as well as what it's going to project externally. And that is going to inform you about those transformational opportunities in your budgeting. Those are the things that you say, hey, I'm going to carve out that 5% because this could be something that is really special. This could be something that is going to put us in the innovator category and is going to help us grow and transform into a new area.
That's great, Mark. Great next step. So I'm sure for our listeners, you have their wheels turning. If they want to reach out to you and ask you a couple questions, or maybe just brainstorm with you a bit, what's the best way in which they can reach you?
Yeah, some of the best ways, obviously, boomer.com. You can contact me directly through our webpage there. You can also find me on LinkedIn as M Staut, and also on Twitter as @CPA Tech Geek as well.
Awesome. Well, Mark, as always, it's a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for being on this episode of the podcast. For our listeners, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. And each week, we kind of rotate through a variety of topics that could be leadership, talent, process, technology, growth, things of that sort. But the common theme is they're all critical to your firm's success. So if you like Mark and I's conversation today, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast and stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks so much. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.